Call the meeting to order. We'll stand, pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now we'll have our invocation, Mr. Trent Holbert.
Thank you. Would you bow with me? Our Heavenly Father, as we enter into this new year, we give you thanks. Father, we thank you, Lord, for this time together. As we enter into a new year with new leadership, Father, we pray for new blessings. Father, we pray that each and every decision that is made from this body is a decision that comes from your wisdom and with your favor. Father, we pray that every decision that is made is impacted by more of your blessing, and Father, that we will continue to see the blessing upon Black Mountain and its people, and God, that you will forever and eternally bless those who come together to benefit this community. And Father, I pray for the Alderman, our mayor, those who serve, our police and fire, emergency services, and Lord, may you watch over each and every one of them. And God, we give you thanks and praise, and we just pray, Father, over tonight's meeting. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, guys, for announcements, we have an announcement concerning your Christmas trees. You deliver the used trees to the community garden, and they'll be mulched for use at the garden for the 2018 year. And this is, it was from 12/26 and it goes to 1/15/2018. It's at the John Wilson Community Garden behind Gray Eagle Arena. And if you're looking for a GPS, it's 99 White Pine Road, Black Mountain, North Carolina. All right, we have one proclamation and award recognition, and it is proclamation honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. inspired millions of Americans to participate in nonviolent protest, to support the ideas of equality for all, and was a motivating force behind a civil rights movement that had as its goal the creation of a society tolerant of all races, cultures, nationalities, and whereas the ideals of Dr. King and of Black Mountain's commitment to human rights are worth of reflection and serve as a reminder that improving the quality of life for all members of our community is a responsibility of every citizen. And whereas the celebration of Dr. King's birthday is intended as a time for all Americans to reaffirm their commitment to the basic principles that underline our Constitution, equality and justice for all. And whereas the town of Black Mountain encourages all citizens to re-educate themselves to the principles of respect for human rights and freedom, a belief in nonviolence, of commitment to improving our community throughout community service and volunteerism. Now, therefore, I, Don Collins, Mayor of Black Mountain, Town of Black Mountain, on behalf of the Board of Alderman and the citizens of Black Mountain, wish to honor and hereby proclaim Monday, January 8, 2018, as Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The town of Black Mountain will honor Dr. King Jr. at the 26th Annual Swannanoa Valley Prayer Breakfast, Saturday, February 10th, 2018, at 8 a.m. at Camp Dorothy Walls. Black Mountain has hosted the local Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, and it will be hosted by the Memorial Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Corporation. All righty. We now have citizen comments. Do we have anybody sign up? Okay, just to remind folks, the citizen comment period for the public hearing that we have will be basically allowed for comments on the financing part of that resolution. So, hearing no citizen comments, we'll go on to communications from boards, commissions, and agencies. Matt?
You've got a report tonight from Robert Woodward with the library board doing his annual report.
And I think Robert
Oh.
forgot.
Okay, well then I'll call on Ron Sneed.
I reminded Robert Friday, but apparently forgot. As most of you know, I've been on the library board forever, and we die there. It's not the library. Didn't go out and do the homework that Robert would have done to give you a detailed report. Although I will tell you one thing: we have a new librarian. If anybody's met Melissa Presley, and she's a very involved and active librarian. We're coming up on an anniversary of the library this coming year, or during this year now. And she is planning things, and I think there'll be activities and some changes made, mostly in decor and the way the layout is inside to make it more inviting, that she's working on setting up to celebrate the anniversary of the library. Those of you who don't know, our library used to be upstairs in what is now the museum when it was a fire department, and Dottie McGraw ran the library, and everybody knew Dottie, and you knew all the books she had because there weren't a lot. And this town built the library as it stands today. The actual federal, I think, donated the property. Betty Tyson almost single-handedly browbeat all of us till she raised enough money to build that library. And now, 50 years later, our librarian thinks it's worth spending the time to celebrate the work they did to create this library.
What anniversary is it?
The building was, the initial part of the building was completed in 1968. It's been 50 years.
Wow.
Well, I know the town's certainly proud of it. And
Excuse me, Don.
Sure.
Ron, could you remind me and probably other people who may not recall exactly how the board, like is it called the library board? Library board that we have here in Black Mountain that you serve on and other folks serve on, and how that relates to the Buncombe County library system and so forth?
We're basically not much more than a glorified maintenance committee. In the mid-'80s, our library, which was run and operated by the town up until that point, joined the PAC system. And we provide the building, we maintain the building, or the town does, and PAC provides the books, pays the utilities, except for sewage, which just strikes me as a lot. Buys the books, pays the staff, and sets the schedules. And the town, through money that you provide each month to the board to use, maintains the building. Some of you remember relatively recently, it was renovated, and the town put up a big part of the money, and the county paid the bigger part of that to renovate the library. So we haven't had much break lately, but we're coming up on that time again where parts get replaced. But the building's in really good shape in renovation. As Ted, this board's been generous in making sure there's been adequate funding to our board to maintain it. And it's a good facility. There's been money spent on it that apparently our building is the most energy efficient in the system, in spite of the fact that several are newer. Number of things this board, your generosity made it possible to super insulate, select heating systems that best were most efficient for that building, that kind of thing.
Thanks.
anyone else? Thank you, Ron. And Sean Freeman, police report, semi-annual report. You'll step up to the podium, please, sir.
Matt had told me I had like 50 to 60 minutes. That's what he stated. So we'll see if we can burn all that time up. But no, I appreciate the opportunity to come up and kind of share what we've done and maybe even give some insight on what we will be doing in the upcoming year. But coming to Black Mountain, of course, change for any agency is really tough. And kind of my hat's off to Rob and Joe, Lieutenant Kidd and Lieutenant Austin, for an outstanding job kind of holding things through and helping through the transition. And by far, in all the positions I've stepped into, this has been the easiest transition that I have seen. And again, that's got to do with quality staff. So What we're going to discuss today is we're going to talk about our call volumes and trends, discuss the impact that the police department's had on our drugs within the community, talk about grants and upcoming grants that we're going to be applying for, the department's community initiatives, and then we're also going to talk about the community outreach that we've been trying to grow. So in 2017, we responded to 26,911 calls for service. This encompassed walk-ins, 911 calls, self-initiated calls, traffic stops, things of that nature. Kind of a breakdown, what I wanted to do to keep a lot of the statistics out of it and really just get to kind of the meat and potatoes. I put up there, we have incidents and investigations, the vehicle accidents, arrests, and state citations. So underneath the incidents and investigations, we had 337 incidents or investigations that resulted in 567 charges. We had 350 vehicle accidents, 539 arrests, which resulted in 1,137 charges. The arrest total there is about 4.5% higher than it was last year as well. State citations were 683 with 872 total charges on those citations. This is a 5-year trend, so you can see in 2013 we had 20,364 calls. Again, for 2017 we're looking at 26,911. We're looking at a little over a 32% growth in our call volume.
Excuse me, Chief, what's a state citation?
Basically you have, you can do warnings or on traffic stops, for example. You can do, well, and not all those, because we can actually charge like misdemeanor possessions of marijuana and stuff like that. We can charge on a state citation as well. It means it goes to state courts rather than being paid by a civil fine to the town. So we had 61 more calls than last year. Again, that's a little over a 32% growth in our call volumes in a 5-year period. And part of that is attributed to, with that same time period, we're looking at almost a 3.8% growth in our population as well. So with the growth, of course, comes more calls. One of the things that we were trying to do is essentially make our town a whole lot safer. So in 2017, through a lot of proactive approaches and the development of the PACE team, we have been able to have a massive impact on drug activity within the community. Essentially, Asheville's getting the heat put on, or the drug dealers in Asheville's getting the heat put on. McDowell County's putting it on, and we're kind of in the middle. So we see a growth coming in, so we wanted to attack that. The activity that we had was an 18% increase over drug arrests last year. The difference is a lot of these were higher quantities of drug arrests as well. So instead of it being the simple possessions, we're talking trafficking amounts. And our main drugs that we're seeing, of course, is methamphetamine, marijuana, and cocaine, but we're also still seeing that opioid issue, which is devastating the whole state at this time. Some of the busts we had in the top left, you're looking at essentially about 20 grams of heroin with fentanyl in it. Of course, the opioids in the bottom left. What you see in the center, and we'll talk about here in just a minute, is what they call butter or THC oil. Essentially, it's cooking the THC out of the marijuana. It's a more pure form, and they mix it, and so they call it butter. In the bottom, you see mushrooms, and then individual bags of heroin in the bag to the left, and then some of the cash that we've seized as well. So our drug seizures in grams, as you can see, our methamphetamine by far is still our number one problem, with 3,781 grams that's been seized. Marijuana is our next biggest issue with 2,300, a little over 23, and then of course cocaine, heroin, and then the THC oil truly probably should be categorized within the marijuana, because that's exactly what it is, but we put it in its own category because we're starting to see this more and more. When, let me back up one. If you look at the total amount, so we put an estimated, after talking with Homeland Security, we put an estimation of the methamphetamine had a street value of roughly $76,600. The marijuana was almost $35,000. Cocaine was around $32,200, and heroin about 4,000, ecstasy 2,000, and then the THC oil you see up there is a little over 113,000. The other things that we see, and this is what we measure in dosage units, this is your opioid issues, is 96 dosage units of oxy and hydrocodone, all the way over to the clozapam, and then the steroids as well were our major. So the street values on those were the oxycodone, hydrocodone, about 4,000, all the way up to about 4,000 for each of those. The biggest take from this is we had essentially 64 arrests that resulted in 4,397.5 grams of narcotics plus 448 dosage units of narcotics, with a total estimated street value of almost $275,000. One of the things that, by taking a proactive approach to the narcotics and the crimes that we have been taking, we developed a really good partnership with Homeland Security and Homeland Security Investigations in this region. They actually approached us wanting to work with us. One of the things that it does for us is it allows us some federal funds to get some of the equipment we need to combat this. It also allows, when we're doing investigations, it allows us to file the overtime and get reimbursed as well. So a really good partnership that has been formed there. Grants we did receive, as you guys know, we received the Bureau of Justice grant for $11,000 for the body cameras. We're in the final stages of that, getting ready to implement the body camera program. We've also put in for a Governor's Crime Commission grant. It's a no-match grant that the max funds we can receive, and we're looking at maxing that out as $24,500. What we're trying to do with that grant is buy newer MDTs for the remainder of the cars, also some of the printers, to try to reduce that cost to the town as well. So since May and coming here, one of the things that I really want to do that's always been near and dear to my heart is open up our communication with the citizens we serve. So we took several initiatives this year. While Sourwood wasn't an initiative, what we did do was we took a more active role within Sourwood. Of course, Facebook, community policing uniforms, and we'll go through each of these. So at the Sourwood Festival, what we did this year was we essentially set up a booth. One of the things that I wanted to do is take this as a first step of number one, kind of introducing myself to the community, but more importantly is giving the community a line of communication, a way to approach us, come up and talk to us. And during this time, I'd bought some T-shirts as well. This is when we were looking into the future and trying to forecast what we wanted to do, which was, again, we want to take a more active approach and help the community. So we were selling T-shirts and things like that to try to raise money to help the needy during the holidays. And we did really good there and ended up getting quite a few donations as well. Very good response from the communities. Facebook was the next initiative that we took. At any one time, we have 3 or 4 sets of eyes within the community. And what my intentions with Facebook, and is actually turned out much better than I'd anticipated, was when we're able to educate and communicate with the community we serve, it puts more sets of eyes out there helping us watch the roads and watch the streets and look for this activity that we want to keep out of our town. This was the first step in trying to incorporate our citizens in working with us, working together to make the town a whole lot safer. As of today, we have almost 2,100 followers as well. We use Facebook for a multiple variety of things. Number one, of course, we put our felony arrest, drug arrest, and things like that up there. It's a way for us to communicate during the holidays, show the town exactly some of the things that we're doing, such as the middle picture where we were passing out Christmas gifts. Put kind of public service announcements when there's road closures by public services, things like that. And then we also try to put things up there like the iPhone that you see in the top right, where you can hit the button like 5 times and it pulls up where you can hit SOS, and you never have to say a word and it sends out an SOS message. So we try to use that in multiple ways. Next is, when I first got here, I was approached and the guys were like, we did our research on you, and we've seen that there was community policing uniforms you guys have. Is that something we can look at? Me personally, I was looking forward in getting back into the traditional stuff. However, considering that's what they were looking at, knowing what I know from the past, you know, the traditional uniforms just throw up so many barriers, and they're so formal that people tend to kind of stand off. And what these uniforms do is they kind of break those barriers down, and they encourage and promote the contact with the citizens. And so far, you know, the feedback that we have received has just been overwhelming with people liking these community policing uniforms. We did add some additional radar signs. These are permanently mounted radar signs. They're now solar powered, so we don't have to worry about replacing the batteries, so they're always working on each end of the town. But, you know, more importantly, what it did was it allows us to use, excuse me, these other radar signs that we have, the portable ones to put all through the town. Anywhere we may get complaints, we can set them up to, you know, to help slow down traffic within the communities. We teamed up with a group called Project Lazarus to offer a drug drop box. One of the main reasons that I did this was just the fact of we do have an opioid issue, and when we can get people to work with us to dispose of these drugs here, and then we take and get rid of them properly, there's less likelihood for those to end up on the streets. So they generously even delivered it up to us to be able to put into the lobby. One of the most important things that I wanted to do was develop something that was a way to break down the communication barriers. So I took two of the personnel that we had, we held, and Fred actually set the boards for it. But we did interviews, and we developed a PACE team, and the acronym stands for Police and Citizens Police and Citizens Enrichment. Then TEAM stands for Together Everyone Achieves More. As I developed this team, I figured we would be doing 90% of going door to door, knocking and talking to citizens, educating them on what we have to offer, and just letting them be that first line of communication between the department, between those that we serve. However, when we got into it, we most certainly started getting the complaints, but most of them were drugs, and I would have to say that we probably spend 90% of our time working drugs, and then the other 10% doing community policing. But now that's starting to slow down a little bit because we have made an impact. So we are now focusing back into the community policing initiative and turning the PACE team into exactly what, you know, it was intended to be. Next, what I wanted to do was come up with a way for citizens. We don't get a whole lot of people wanting to come out and hang out at the police department. Nobody really does. You're usually in trouble when you come up there. So one way to do that is put us in a less formal environment, and that's exactly what we try to do. And the coffee shops have been great. The responses we've had have been great. We usually set it up for an hour at a time, and I think the shortest amount of time we've been there is close to 2.5 hours. But it's good because, you know, they can come in, citizens they can tell us what their issues are, or if they have any questions. But more importantly, it just gives a time for general conversation and just, you know, for them to get to know us as part of the community. The next thing we did was we wanted to take part in a lot of the community meetings. With the community meetings, we went to the Rotary and Kiwanis and any of the opioid symposiums, which is what these pictures are from, because again, we want to be part of these meetings. So if anybody has any questions specific to us, then we're there to answer that and help them get the answers they're seeking. And we have several more lined up in the very near future. One of the things that's near and dear to my heart, of course, is our elderly population. This is not started yet. It is in the final stages. But I've had great success with this in other agencies I've been a part of. It's where elderly citizens can come up or call, and we'll come out and fill it out. But they request to be part of a program to where every day they call us at 11 o'clock to let us know they're okay. If by 11 o'clock we don't receive that phone call, we go out and check on them because we want to make sure they're okay. So this is coming within the next month or so. This will actually kick off and be up and running. So with our community outreach, again, we're not here to just protect and serve. You know, I'm very adamant that we're here to help our community and be an active part of our community. And the past 7 or 8 months have been really, really successful for us in the sense of the community outreach. And a lot of that's got to do with the partnerships that have been formed with local businesses and the citizens. Again, we can't take the credit for this because it is the town pulling together with us to help us out. And during the holidays, just Christmas alone, we were able to turn the donations that we received into, essentially we put over $6,000 alone at Christmas back into the community and helping those in need. But as far as we're in the schools daily, we try to always participate. We do the Lunch Buddy program with some of the kids down there. So we're very active within the schools. We want to make sure that no barriers are put up because the youth of our community are very important to us. And the best way to impact that is interact with them when they're young. So we try to spend as much time as possible within the schools, not just Buster who goes down there every day, but we have the day shift officers typically take their turns going in and out of the schools with Buster or at different times going into the schools. So we're very active with our schools within Black Mountain as well. One of the things that we had, of course, earlier this year was Hurricane Irma. And again, this was simply, and I gave a brief on this previously, but we had a group of 2 staff who wanted to help out, who volunteered their time. And then also we had a group of businesses and citizens who donated, and we filled the 26-foot box truck to the top. And not only that, but one of the local businesses, Precision Graphics, went down with our guys, and together with them, we served over 700 meals and passed out a lot of stuff to Collier County. And these are simply some of the photographs during passing out the goods there. But to me, this is the most important thing. We were able to represent the town of Black Mountain in a very positive manner, and we got to reap the rewards. And this is the rewards here, is the gratification of seeing the difference that you can make to a community that's going through such devastation. Thanksgiving was another time that we were looking at, just for the fact so many families sometimes do not have the money to afford Thanksgiving meals. So we again paired up with local businesses. We were able to provide 12 families with full Thanksgiving meals, the hams, potatoes, desserts, drinks, bread, everything. But not only did we want to do that, we wanted to help out our elderly within the community as well. So we took and we were able to provide about a 50 to 70 pound box of groceries to over 10 elderly people within the community as well. And then our more recent venture, of course, was Christmas. And when we first started this, and back at the Sourwood, I was thinking we may be able to get 4 to 5 kids. However, with the donations coming in from the community, we were able to initially adopt 10 children. Not long after that, Jamie's guys in Public Services wanted to pair up with us and help us out, so they raised over $2,300. And then, of course, the police officers, not to be outdone, they thought they were going to raise equally amount of money, but they only got $1,046. But we were able to take that $3,000 and adopt 8 more children within the community. So ultimately, when we adopted them, it wasn't just buying toys. We bought coats, we bought shoes, pants, shirts, everything that they will need, and then also on top of that, we were able to provide the toys. So in closing, I've worked at a lot of different agencies, but stepping into the Black Mountain Police Department was great, just for the fact I've never seen the quality of professionalism and the heart to serve from the majority or all of the staff. A lot of these guys, when they were supposed to be spending time with their families, they actually spent time at the department, give up time with the families to be able to give back to the community, going well above what's expected. So again, we're looking to, in the upcoming year in 2018, not only meet what we have set as a bar, but exceed the citizens' expectations of what we're doing. Now, I just kind of want to leave you with the quote that I'd put up there, because this is kind of what we focused on over the holidays, is kind of our quote, and it was by Sir Winston Churchill. He said, "We make a living by what we get, we make a life by what we give." And that's exactly what we're trying to do, is we're trying to make a life by what we give. And I'm open to any questions you may have.
Chief, with the money that's forfeited by the drugs, do we get a kickback off of that? Do we get anything in return?
We do. So In the state of North Carolina, it's a little bit less. And what we've done by pairing up, we get essentially with Homeland Security, we now have that task force officer. It does a couple things. It allows us, number one, we can seek federal charges on these individuals, which is a more harsh penalty than they could get at the state level. But more importantly, when we do seizures or when we participate with Homeland Security anywhere else, we'll get a cut of any seizures, even outside of our jurisdiction as well. So we have done some things jointly already, and it comes back into what we have as a forfeit seizure fund, to where we can actually get equipment, things we need with that. So we're hoping to see those funds start getting better as we go along.
Is the police dog? Is that essential to the drug?
It is. And the problem is ours is so old now. She's
That's what I
near
thought
the
the
end of
last,
the life.
presentation we had. What about replacing her?
Yes, I think.
Yeah.
And so it is set for the budget in the upcoming year to replace that dog. We've actually had to call in canines outside the area to use them with the county and some of the other jurisdictions, which, again, we have a good working relationship with everyone surrounding us, and they're more than willing to help. But yes, it is very vital.
She's a little too old to work now.
It is. Just the age. The age on a working dog is usually 6 years, maybe 8 extended, and she's 8, so she's at the end of her career. Any other? All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief. Moving on to the consent agenda.
Yeah, tonight, Mr. Mayor, all you have on the consent agenda are your minutes from your December 7th agenda session and your December 11th regular session.
Do I have a motion to approve item A as presented?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Citizen comments on new business. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak on new business? Seeing none, we'll go to new business resolution to modify the municipal boundaries of the towns of Black Mountain and Montreat.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so tonight you have in your packet, you should have a letter from the town of Montreat requesting that we work together with a resolution to de-annex 4 pieces of property that are currently in the town of Black Mountain that the town of Montreat has purchased. As you all are aware, but I'll make everybody else aware too. Obviously neither town is authorized to de-annex any pieces of property. The General Assembly in Raleigh is the only body that can do that. We are all obviously creatures of the state, and they can change those boundaries as they wish. So the request from the town of Montreat is that those boundaries be adjusted. The resolution from us would just agree that we were amenable to that adjustment of the boundaries, and you should have a map in front of you. You can put it up if you want to, but it's actually kind of small. But it's basically the piece of property. It's piece of property that were owned by the Mountain Retreat Association. That's right. And so they were not tax-paying or taxable parcels currently. The town of Montreat, I think, has purchased them, so they will again not be taxable parcels. So it doesn't impact any revenue for the town of Black Mountain. It does accommodate the ability of Montreat to build a new facility for their town hall or whatever purposes that they have. I would point out that even as it's currently zoned under Black Mountain zoning, SR2, government facilities are allowed there. So they could do this. They could build within our guidelines. They could build a government facility on these parcels, or on this parcel, primarily on the parcel that you can see along. That's Montreat Road going up to where the gate is. So that is their request, is that we there is no cost to the town. There's no commitment on part of the town. The Town of Montreat has been kind enough to point out that when they do construct it, they would put sidewalk in front of their section so that it would complete the final portion. You know, we've worked for 5 years to have sidewalk connection between Black Mountain and Montreat, and they've been very committed from their end to complete that too. And so, as a part of that, we would continue to work to get that done. So I think that this resolution basically says that we're in support of that effort, and it will go to the General Assembly. The General Assembly, I think, convenes pretty soon, but maybe to take up just some specific items. It's what's called a short session year, which means they convene in May and they take on certain legislation, but local legislation is considered at the time, and and Montreat will handle all of the details of that. What they request from us is a resolution saying that we support their efforts, and then we will step back and let that work take place.
So that the motion that we're looking for, should we be in favor of this, is just to approve this resolution?
Yes, sir. That's really what you're doing. Approve a resolution to support their effort.
I would make a motion that we do so. We'll discuss it, but I'd make a motion that we do so.
All right, motion is made. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, Matt, the safety or Black Mountain Statement of Policy.
Yes, sir. So we have before you a statement of policy. These are policies that the previous boards have passed over a number of years. This particular document staff has put together to try to consolidate a variety of policies that each department has had, so into one document that the public can easily digest and get their hands on. So I'll give just, for example, it has the policies from the water department of how you set up an account and what your deposit will be and what the payment timelines are. It has the policies for the recreation department on when parks are open and closed. It has policies from the public services on how to get a street taken over for maintenance, or policies from the golf course on who can ride drive a golf cart. And the policies that the boards have passed over many years, this has not been reviewed. I think we have somewhere here since 1998. So that's 20 years. I think every 20 years we should look at our statement of policy and make sure that we're being consistent with that. It's the important thing from my perspective is that it gives us a document to work from, so that when we do want to make changes, when you see things, when you say, hey, we should change our deposit policy for water service, or we should or change how we collect building permits. This is a document that we can refer back to and make those changes, instead of having a document in the planning department and a document in the water department and a document at the golf course. We have one document that tells us how we handle administrative services, and I'd like to see this be a document that evolves and changes, because we will make changes to it. But this is our starting point of the things that we have passed, and we know that are consistent with how we handle the public services we provide. I can give you an example. I know when Chief Freeman was reviewing his section, there was a portion that said that the police department will escort people when they take merchants when they need to take their money to the bank. Well, we don't do that anymore, and we haven't done that in numerous years. So we took that out. So those are some of the things that we've tried to make the policies consistent with what we actually do, and then give ourselves a document that we can work from to make changes as we go forward. And that's what this is.
Do I have a motion to adopt the revised Town of Black Mountain Statement of Policy as presented or amended?
So moved.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0.
Next, Mr. Mayor, you've got an appointment to fill a vacancy on the Historic Preservation Commission. I think we have one.
Nell Ruffin.
Yeah, so we have one applicant for that position, Nell Ruffin.
Do I hear a motion for nomination?
I'll nominate Neil Ruffin.
Is there any discussion? We have a motion on the floor.
And we'll likely have some other appointments coming up.
And I was going to say that when you get done, I would point out that in, obviously in May, when did we start? In May, we're going to start advertising again for the vacancies that come open naturally on all the boards and commissions. And so if you know other people, or if any of you people want to be on a board or commission, that information will come out, and we would encourage everybody to be on it. This is one vacancy from someone who left the Historic Commission, but there will be numerous vacancies as we move forward. Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved 5-0. All right, moving on. We have a public hearing. Tonight's public hearing, item number 9, is to authorize the town of Black Mountain to file a financing agreement with the local government commission regarding the town's purchase of the property at 304 Black Mountain Avenue. The offer to purchase was approved by the Board of Alderman at a call meeting November 2nd, 2017. Tonight's decision will focus solely on the financing arrangement associated with the purchase. Comments during the public hearing should adhere to the financing portion of the purchase. Any other comments regarding the property or other town business are, of course, and would have been welcome during the citizen comment portion of tonight's meeting. Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Any discussion? Do we have any folks from the public like to speak? Step up, give your name and address.
My name is Charlotte McRaney, 795 Lakey Gap Road here in Black Mountain. I am a CPA and a banker with 30 years of experience in real estate, commercial and residential. I'm here today to touch base on an aspect of the financing that gives me some concern, and that is the sale of the old property and the timing on which it will be done and the proceeds applied to the loan. It's my understanding from my review of the material that we are in the sales contract that we're looking at a $1.5 million loan for 3.5% over 20 years. And according to the calculations that I have run in Excel, that's generating an interest cost of over $500,000 over the life of the loan, probably around $588,000. And by the way, I will be providing my Excel spreadsheets for your review. One of the reasons that I'm concerned about this delay is a quote from the newspaper article about the property purchase. And I quote, "A future I-40 interchange at Blue Ridge Road would allow the town to eventually sell the current public services site," Collins said. "We could sit on that property for a while and sell it later, which would help pay for a large chunk of this purchase," he said. As I mentioned, I've been in the business for over 30 years, being in banking and seeing lots of cycles of real estate ups and downs. And it gives me great concern that there's even an inkling of sitting on this property for a period of time. In my mind, that's real estate speculation with the taxpayers' property. Because we are now at the end, approaching the end of a 9-year upcycle in the economy. I read the other day that this is approaching one of the longest economic upcycles that has ever existed, the 60s being one of the longest. So it is inevitable, probably within the next 2 to 3 years, that we are going to hit another down cycle. It's inevitable. And so the odds that by the time that interchange is built, that we are still going to be on an upcycle in real estate or the economy as a whole are slim. So I have watched 3 or 4 cycles in my real estate career, in my banking career. And anybody who's in real estate thinks it's never going to end. They always think this time is different. It's always going to be different. So I urge you, do not sit on that property. Put it up for sale as soon as it's vacant. I ran a couple of alternative scenarios, and again, I will give you all the numbers, and I'm going to hand you out just so you have it, the actual numbers in I'll give it to you in a minute. Here it is. Here's my handouts. But the bottom line is, if you were to apply, let's just say it sold for $300,000, and you were to apply that at the end of the first year of the loan, after 12 months, the loan interest would be reduced from around $580,000 over the life to around $320,000, a savings of almost $270,000 over the life of the loan. That is huge. Now, if you postponed that sale and still got the same dollar amount for it till year 3, you're now reduced, the loan interest would be reduced to only $358,000 and you'd lose $39,000. Now, I didn't even try to sit down and run all the other scenarios. What if instead you were only able to sell it for $200,000 because the economy tanked, yada, 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 yada. You know, so there's numerous other scenarios that could be run. But I guess my message to you and what I am begging of you, please don't take that risk. Put it on the market, because we all know that commercial real estate does not sell as fast as residential real estate. Finding somebody who's the right fit for that property is going to take time. And it could take a year or 2 to find the right buyer. And all we can do is sit back and hope that in that year or 2, we don't have that economic downturn. And yes, I know people are out there saying the tax cut is going to pump the economy and this, that, and the other. But what we don't know is what other factors could be going on out there that could counteract that. And we don't know whether that's going to be true anyway. What I'm most worried about is the length of the economic cycle we've already had and the fact that that's running out. And so I guess my message to you is, if you're going to go into this financing, that's fine. 3.5% seems to be a really good interest rate. An amortizing loan, if that's what you're doing, seems to be a good deal. But please sell that property and pay down as much of it as you can as soon as possible. Don't play real estate speculation with the taxpayers' assets. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
Thank you. I'm Lisa Milton, 406 West State Street. I understand Charlotte's point of view, but on the piece of property, I have to take a different point of view. We're not making any more land. We have bought and sold property that we've then turned around and repurchased at a much higher price because the needs of the community have grown. I think with that piece of property, just the use that I see of the citizens in the town of Black Mountain, to at this point say we have to sell this in order to purchase the other piece, I think is maybe short-sighted in the long-term view of it, because people utilize that piece as a place to exercise. Kids get out there and they play. People garden there. We have talked at the planning department of the need for affordable housing. The affordable housing is not going to come in this town with the cost of dirt unless the town maybe looks to take an active participating role in helping to provide the dirt to start the building of affordable homes. That is a large piece of property that could be taken for that, and I would much prefer my tax dollars go towards something for that benefits a lot of the working people in this community that can't afford to live here, as opposed to sell it and pay down the debt. I mean, I don't like taking on debt, but I also don't like the idea of the town giving up land when we are in a position where we can afford to be able to make the payments on a new piece of property, but still have that land for use or a possible different use in the foreseeable future. But if we sell it and we find we need it, then we can be in the position we've been in before, which is we have to buy it back at a much higher price. So I just hope you'll balance both views and make the best decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
And I would just note for the board, I think we had mentioned last week we were getting our financing package bids in. Today we did get 2 bids in, and BB&T is our lowest bid at an interest rate of 3.49% for a 15-year term. So that is the direction that we would go. This, again, the purchase at 304 Black Mountain Avenue is independent of other pieces of property. What you're doing tonight is a resolution to satisfy the local government commission's requirement that you all are comfortable with borrowing $1.5 million at 3.49% interest for the next 15 years. But again, you'll have to take all these other points into account in the future.
Are there any discussion by the board members?
I'm just wondering, a point of order from the town clerk. Do we need to close the public hearing?
If there's nobody left, close the public hearing and then you have your discussion. That's for a motion to close.
All right. Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I hear a motion to adopt resolution R18-110?
Oh, wait.
Motion to close.
I'm sorry, I'm just going by the order that I have it here. All right,
You vote on your motion to close the public hearing.
Yeah, so now just call for the vote.
I'm calling for the motion to vote.
All in favor to close.
All in favor of close, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, any discussion by the board members?
You can do. It's at your discretion now. You can just you've closed the public hearing. You can discuss the details of it, or you can make a motion to approve the resolution and then discuss it. You have to pick how you want to do it.
I'd just offer the comment that I think both comments from the public were well said and good points, and we'll just need to work through that as we move forward. But we're not quite at that point in making that decision yet, but we'll be there soon. So thank you for both comments.
And Matt, just for everybody out there, would you care to give us just a rough timeline of how the LGC will review this before we actually work towards?
I'll tell you what I will do. I will call on Dean Libby, the assistant town manager, to kind of tell us what the next step is with the local government commission.
This week we'll be sending in the application and the signed resolution, and there's about 10 different pieces of information they need. and it'll go before their board sometime early February. My expectation would be that if we get all of our 10 pieces in, one of them includes the minutes that Angela from this part of the meeting right here, which hers will be a little bit, they're okay if it's a little bit late. But I think by February 10th, we will, my guess is that we will have approval from LGC. We'll set up a closing when it works between BB&T and Matt and I and everybody. And we could probably have it closed by late February, I would guess.
I would say, just with timing, maybe let's say March, mid-March,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a close.
Now, does the resolution, will it, and you may have said this and I missed it, will it reference the BB&T details and so forth of the loan? Or just says we're gonna get a loan?
Yeah.
Right, this is more of a resolution saying that you all
This
have.
is not gonna change what
No,
was in there.
that's right. So it's not gonna change. This is for you to
Right.
so the LGC knows that the elected officials understand that.
You
that
need
bond
their
money's being
approval
borrowed.
before you can actually engage, make the contract with the bank.
Yeah, they want to see the contract between us and BB&T as well, but their main purpose right now is just that the board knows that we're going for financing for $1.5 million.
Right.
And then what bank we choose is not, they need to see that contract, but that's not really what we're talking about tonight.
Anyone else? Do I hear a motion to adopt Resolution R 18-01, authorizing the town of Black Mountain to make the application to the North Carolina Local Government Commission for approval of a financing agreement authorized by NCGS 160A-20 for financing purchase of property located at 304 Black Mountain Avenue and described on the Buncombe County tax maps as PIN number 0619-34-0581.
So moved.
Have a motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, communication from the staff. Ron, you got anything?
I do, for a change.
All righty.
Last, I think at the agenda meeting, somebody asked for an update on the Hemphill property. As this board knows, most of the public knows, Mary Hemphill left a piece of property known as the Sims property, which is behind the little houses off of 70, to the Appalachian Conservancy, Southern Highland Conservancy, if the property would be used for a town park. At this point, this board has indicated, yes, we're interested in doing that and going forward. In the last month, we've been working with logistics on that, and Jessica and Casey are putting together the rudimentary parts of a plan for development of a park, and this isn't going to be Ferris wheels. This is going to be just what the property's good for. All the hiking trails, you're never going to get a ball field on that slope. But they're putting together a plan. Something I didn't discuss in the report on this last month is the estate is, I won't say poor, but cash poor. And the will provide for some bequests that are not going to get met. And it puts, if the town said, no, we don't want it, and the conservatives said, no, we don't want it, and that property were available for sale, then that would put money back in the estate, and some people who had specific gifts that aren't going to get them now would be back in the pot. And the Conservancy, who doesn't want to hold title during the time that we have the this property as a park, wants to make sure that there's no loose ends, and we're working on that. That's where we're on the Hemphill property. Just working out logistics, make sure that we don't create problems instead of create a benefit for the town. Second matter is that's been popping an email, and today's a good day to ask the question, is on the Watson case, the property down on Rowstone Road. As this board knows, this has been going on so long it should be forgotten by now, but it's not. But the town adopted a non-residential building maintenance ordinance and cited the Watsons for violation of that ordinance. They appealed to the Board of Adjustment, and Board of Adjustment sent that back for the building inspector to give them more detailed order on what they needed to fix to be in compliance. That was appealed back to the Board of Adjustment after Dan issued that order, and they didn't like that one either. They appealed to Superior Court. Superior Court says like a court of appeals. At that point, we prepared a record. A little stumbling there because the typical order is the record's provided, the appellant files a brief, then the respondent files a brief, and then it's heard. We filed the record, no appellant's brief was ever filed, so to push it off the dime, I filed a respondent's brief without a brief to reply to. We had a hearing in October. At the end of that hearing, the judge indicated that he wanted the record that he had in a format he preferred, the appellant to file a brief, and then gave me the opportunity to file a brief once I'd seen what the appellant was saying. That record was filed, the appellant filed his brief, the town's brief was filed today. I reported to some of you, if not all of you, a few days ago that after the filing of that brief, I would immediately ask the trial court administrator to schedule it for hearing. The indication right now is from the judge, he's not going to have another hearing. He just wants that information from him. He's going to make his decision based on the briefs. He's already heard all the argument he wants. There's a good chance we'll have an answer, an order from the judge, a decision much quicker than I anticipated. I was in communication with the judge today, and he plans on looking at this next weekend. He didn't promise to have a decision next weekend, but that he would look at it. So that may come on a little faster than we anticipated.
Who's the judge in this?
Judge Coward. That's it.
But the only thing that I'll add to what Ron said about the Hemp Hill property is I think that we probably will bring something to you in February. Just like I said, a broad overview of some options for the uses of the property. Again, it's not ball fields and high impact park services. It's going to be low impact, very much blending into what the use of the property is. But I think we need to bring something to the board. So I'd like for you all to if you have ideas of things that you think you don't want or things that you think that you do want on that property, or people give you feedback on it, let's get that compiled. Casey's worked on a document that we can kind of present to the board. We can get that approved in February, at least. And like I said, it's very broad and it doesn't pin you down to anything. What it does is I think it's going to give them a comfort level that we are serious about using it as park land and consistent with the wishes of the Hemp Hill estate. And that's really what I'd like to get something like that done in February. I think if we have that done, then by the springtime we'll know how this moves forward. Is that timeline probably works?
I think that's correct. Yeah. There is one thing I didn't mention that you will hear next month, might as well be aware of it now, is the Sims property that
that's right.
we were talking about. There's one large tract. Adjacent to the large tract is a less than an acre tract that if you're looking at it, you don't know it's a separate piece. And then there's a third piece. It's 1.7 acres, give or take, stuck up on the side of the mountain. It's not attached to the rest of the property. And talking with Jessica and Matt, doesn't look like we can make any use for it unless we buy a helicopter. And I've been asked by the executor that liked at least the town to formally say we don't want that piece, because that gives them a little something to work with, might generate a little bit of cash they can pay bills with.
And I'll get you a map so you can kind of see what that looks like, so that you can see how it ties to this piece. It's not contiguous with this piece.
Right. Along with the map, the overall map, which would be helpful, but and if perhaps you've given us something like this, and I'm just not remembering it, but I'd like Casey's best thoughts he could come up with on the use of it.
Yep.
I don't think we've seen that, but if we have, I don't remember.
You have it, because
that would be very helpful.
That's what I'd like for you for you to see, so that in February you can kind of say, yes, these are the things we want to do and things we don't want on this piece of property.
You can get that to us. It's great. And then also, I'm just sort of curious what the executor thinks the property could perhaps, how much cash could be raised with it.
With what?
With the property. I mean, what's it worth on the market?
Oh, the big piece that we're getting, I don't think they've gone to that trouble. they're not monetizing that as an asset. at
You
this
know what the
point.
tax value assessment is?
Not right offhand. I can get that for you. But,
Yeah, we could,
all right.
that with the other information you're giving us, I think could be, this
Okay.
tax assessment would be some idea.
Do want to throw a caveat in there. I may have reported earlier that the two houses were sold and raised close to $200,000 that was to be earmarked to come to the town to develop the park. Because the estate's cash poor, we may not see all of that money. We want the board to be aware of that going forward.
Yeah, because there had been some discussion that's what we would use to develop it, and now that doesn't look like that would be the case.
I'm not saying it's gone. I just want you to be aware that it may be.
And that's all that I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Any communication from the Board of Alderman?
This afternoon I had gone down to the Public Works just to get an idea of what they do and what kind of logistics they have to deal with. And I just wanted to say, as far as the foam and fabric, it makes sense to me logistically, and I think the town should be aware of that. It's a lot of effort, it seems, to get all that equipment in and out. And I think a little bit more room would be beneficial to the town and responses to any issues. And I just wanted to bring that out to the public,
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just want to thank Chief Freeman for a good report, and that I think I probably voiced the sentiments of the board in saying that we appreciate the efforts to engage the community. That could never be a downside, and we appreciate it. Thanks for a good report.
And I'd briefly just like to thank Mayor, our colleagues from Montreat coming out tonight for this resolution, and I hope that this helps in moving us past that controversy with the town hall. And we are certainly glad to help our neighbors as you are willing to help us. So much appreciated as always.
It's just some recognition to all our town staff. This winter has kind of thrown some curveballs, to say the least. And, I think our town streets department and police department and fire department and everybody who's working for the town have made a good effort to get out there and make sure that citizens have been taken care of and situations have been handled to the best of our ability. So thank you folks for the jobs that you do. You don't always hear that. I see a lot of comments on Facebook about the criticisms that we receive in town. But, the proof is in the pudding. And when it comes down to it, you guys do one heck of a job, and we truly appreciate you for that.
Anyone else? I'd like to just add to Chief Freeman, your report was great, and I have heard nothing but good reports from all over this town as far as how pleased they are with you being the chief of this town, and the performance of the police department. It's always been good, and now it's even better. And I'd like to thank Charlotte and Lisa both for their comments. But just remind you of this. This board in the last 6 years has cut our debt in half. We went from 14 debts down to 4 by paying things off early every year. We're like a bunch of excited folks looking to see what we can do to retire debt early in this town. And we've went from 14 to 4, and what you've given us assumes that we're going to do it at the life of the loan. I don't expect that for one minute. I know that we also have $1.2 million more in the general fund, which is like a 32% increase. So trust me, this board is conscious of how we spend the taxpayer money and how we handle it and how we deal with any debt that we take. And with that, unless there's anyone else, meeting adjourned.